ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिने इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी वाणीप्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पश्चित्यादेशचारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, welcome everyone for the Vaishnava Sanga festival. We are all blessed to His Holiness Narayana Maharaj. We feel very insignificant sitting in front of all the elevated Vaishnavas and Maharaj. We are not worth sitting here and talking anything. We just want to share our experiences so far, what we had. We lived a Grihastha life, and the organizers asked us if we can do something. So, with all your blessings, we want to talk about Grihastha Ashram today. Thank you very much for the organizers and all the Vaishnavas who are here. So today our topic is about the ashramas. There are 4 different ashramas. First of all, we need to understand what is an ashrama. Ashrama is the place one stays and takes the shelter of the Supreme Lord. That is ashrama. And there are 4 kinds of ashramas: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. And they all have different roles in the social order of life. Brahmacharya, the brahmachari is always dependent on guru. He's in the Vedic days, he stays in the ashrama, and then he always gets the instruction from his teacher, and then he executes the order. And that is the only role of brahmachari. He can't have his own independence. He's always getting instructions from the superior authority, and then he's executing that order. As if like, you go to school or college, you have to do this at 9 o'clock, you have to do this at 10 o'clock, but it's all good instruction. He's basically training himself to move on to the next ashrama. And the next ashrama gives him a little bit more independence, but tie him materially more. So when a brahmachari decides to move on to the next ashrama, that's a Grihastha ashrama. So there, he is not so much being controlled or told what he needs to do every single hour. He has his own independence. With that comes a lot of responsibility. So he's expanding himself, and he's going to have a family, and then he will have a child. So it's just not the responsibility that he has to do something now. Now he's also responsible for a couple of other souls. Then one gets into the Grihastha ashrama. We will be, in this lecture further down, we will be focusing more on Grihastha ashrama. The next ashrama is vanaprastha. So when you have all the material opulences, you enjoy everything, and then simultaneously you learn how you can praise Krishna, how you can do spiritual activity. You practice yourself with your family. Then slowly the Grihastha has to detach himself from all the material attachment, the wife, children, the relationship, all the material relationship. So he moves on to the next ashrama, which is vanaprastha. In this ashrama, nobody is actually depending on him, and he is more dependent on Krishna. But still, he has to find his livelihood, so he has to find food. He is still little bit, not depending on Krishna. Then the order goes to sannyasa. When you have the sannyasa order, sannyas, they are completely dependent on Krishna. They don't have to worry about anything. They know Krishna will take care of everything, and they don't have any intention to fulfill any of their material desires. It's completely spiritual. So Krishna takes care of them, and they are completely independent of all the material things that we go through, and they are 100% dependent on Krishna. So from the brahmacharya to sannyasa, it goes, the scale goes, you have more dependent on the material, and then you're less dependent on Krishna, and then slowly the scale tips, and then finally you become 100% dependent on Krishna. So according to Srila Prabhupada, what differentiates four ashramas is the strength of renunciation and means of livelihood. That's what Prabhupada says about ashrama. Now, Grihastha ashrama. So we understood what is ashrama. Ashrama is one who takes the shelter of the Supreme Lord. Now, Grihastha ashrama is griha, home. One who stays in a home with their family members and take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. In Grihastha ashrama is the best one. When you become a family man, there is a concept of grihamedi. Grihamedi is one who is always going to satisfy his own senses. He is always working. He is working to satisfy his family and his children, his relative, himself. His thoughts are circling around how to satisfy my material senses. Now, Grihastha ashrama, the one who is in Grihastha ashrama, his center of focus is Krishna. Yes, he has to work, he has to maintain his body, he has to maintain his family, but he's doing all of those things with keeping Krishna at the center and thinking for every single thing that I'm doing, how I can please Krishna, how can I take one step forward towards Krishna. Yes, I'm doing this, how I can use this service in favor of Krishna. Anything that you do in favor of Krishna, Krishna is going to reciprocate. And then you are in Grihastha. If you don't think of the Supreme who gave you everything in the first place, which is what we all are enjoying, then that becomes the life of Grihamedi. So you live in that cycle of birth and death. Like Prahlad Maharaj says, chewing the chew. That's Grihamedi. So we live in that order, and then we take another birth. So go on, life goes on. So and again, Srila Prabhupada says about Grihastha ashrama. Grihastha ashrama is not separate from spiritual life. It is your spiritual life. So you can make spiritual life successful by being in Grihastha ashrama. And then he also goes on and says, this ashrama is meant for regulating the human mind for spiritual advancement. And then to Yamuna Devi Dasi, Srila Prabhupada once said, this Grihastha ashrama is a factory for producing Krishna consciousness. It's very nice. There are so many quotes and so many letters by Srila Prabhupada explaining how an individual, once gets into the Grihastha ashrama, you have to be responsible and do your duty, take care of your family. You can't ignore things. You can artificially say that, I don't have time, I need to do 16 rounds of japa, I'm not going to do this. That's not the excuse. We have to balance the spiritual life and the material life, but the focus is more towards the spiritual life. So Grihastha ashrama again, performing devotional service to Krishna is the only purpose of life. That's the realization we have to come, and then everything will be nice in that order.
Married life is to help one another in Krishna consciousness. Women generally who's married to a man and a man is married to a woman and they think their relationship is going to last forever and they are attached to each other. But generally, according to the scriptures, the woman is the gateway of help for man and man is the gateway of help for women. Because if you are too attached to the husband or the wife or your children, at the time of death, if you think of them, then you become them. So if a man thinks of a wife at the time of death, and it's most likely that he might get a body of a woman, and then again he has to go through the cycle of repeated birth and death. So we should be in the Grihastha Ashrama, and we should think that we are helping each other progress in Krishna consciousness and not be attached, overly attached. The point of entering Grihastha Ashrama, you might think, is getting too attached to the family, but actually it's the opposite. It refines one's desires, and then you can help each other and progress in spiritual life, and eventually you become detached. So you think the opposite, that you become attached when you enter the Grihastha Ashrama, but actually it helps one become more attached to Krishna, and so you don't give up your desires artificially or externally. It becomes real because you've gone through that. You know what the disadvantages of being a Grihastha, especially if you're a Grahamedi, and so you're more likely to give up all those desires which you hankered for, and then we try to go back to Krishna, which is our real home. And there's a chapter on householders in a book by Niranjana Swami Maharaj. It's from lectures from a disciple, and in that he discusses how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur compares the household life to a well and gives the example of a king hunting in a forest. The king realized he was being stalked by a ferocious tiger that could kill and devour him. He therefore decided to hide in a well, and until the tiger went away. He grabbed 2 branches and lowered himself into the well. But as he lowered himself, he looked down and saw that the well was completely dry and filled with poisonous snakes. The tiger represents death, and the poisonous snake, the anxieties of household life. What was this king to do? Here he was holding on to the 2 branches. He could not come out of the well, and he could not settle at the bottom. The 2 branches represents the pious and impious activities. The branches were beginning to shake because he was in a very tenuous situation. Looking up, the king saw 2 mice. They were chewing on the branches. That's now even worse. These mice represent day and night and the passage of time. And with a passage of time comes death. Without understanding how time is passing, the householder engages in pious and impious activities. Gradually, the branches become thin, almost bitten through, and the householder becomes nervous. How will he be saved now? Looking still further up, the king saw a honeycomb in one of the other branches of a tree. Because the king was shaking, the honeycomb began to flow. The honey began to flow. The king stuck out his tongue and relished the taste of the honey. Even with all these difficulties, a Grahamedi, or a Grihastha who is not thinking about Krishna still craves for that honey, which is such a little sense gratification, and we have to go through so much of difficulty in our lives. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this is the pleasure of household life. Time is passing, death is inevitable, but we are holding on to our pious and impious activities. But despite our distress, we are still trying to taste that drop of honey. Such small sense gratification and so much trouble. A devotee aspires for something higher. So that's why we should all enter, a brahmachari who wants to get married and have a child should enter Grihastha Ashrama, where he can serve the senses of Krishna. Like Maharaj said, it's Rishikena Rishikesha Shrevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So the highest, the pure devotional service is to serve the senses of Krishna, and then our senses become automatically satisfied and become happy. So this is the best way to attain Krishna, especially in Kali Yuga. We don't have to artificially give up any desires, and then we just have to purify our desires. We engage the children and the wife, and we can engage the husband and the family. All should do Krishna conscious duties, and then all our bodily or material attachments will disappear. This has been explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And the primary factor in marriage is that both should help another in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. So it's not we should both, our hands should be engaged in serving the body like that. We should both work together, so we'll both prosper, and then the family will also prosper, and we can finally reach our destination.
That's again a letter by Srila Prabhupada to one of the devotees. Yes, Prabhuji.
Question, are you saying that eventually the couple should separate, or do they stay together like in next world, like eternal marriage at the level 6 times?
The husband and wife?
Yes.
The husband and wife, they are 2 independent souls. They just come together here to serve Krishna. With using their body. One lacks something, they support each other, and they are serving Krishna. Their central focal point is Krishna. In the next life, They are two different souls. Depending on their karma, they brought karma from the previous life. And whatever they did this life, everything together, they will move on to their different body or go back to Godhead.
To answer your question, Prabhupada says you are as good as a sannyasi even staying in the Grihastha Ashrama. So basically you don't have to get separated. If you want to stay in Grihastha Ashrama, you can still serve Krishna. And till the time of death you can do this. Basically the ultimate goal is to think of Krishna at the time of death. You can be in any ashrama and think of Krishna, and still if you leave your body, you're successful. Prabhupada says the symptoms of advancement in Krishna consciousness is a gradually feeling detached to materialistic way of life. Although you are a young man, you got your nice young wife and child, and by Krishna's case, everything is right. So far as your family is concerned, still you are feeling detached. So he encourages detachment, so that is very nice. But when your wife and child are all cooperating in Krishna consciousness, there is no hampering your progress. So keep yourselves away in Krishna, always in Krishna consciousness with your family members. Raise your children to that standard and employ your energy for serving Krishna. Then even though you are in the family life, you are as good as a sannyasi. So Prabhupada doesn't say, of course, you should go to Grihastha or sannyasi after you're 50. That is recommended. If you can do it, that's great. But if it's helping you in Krishna consciousness, there's no need to get completely away from your family. You can still be there and still progress.
So renunciation is not for everybody because it's very hard. So that not everybody can just imitate that process. So you can be in the Grihastha and you can be as good as sannyasis. Sannyasis, the primary thing is they're completely detached from all the material things, and they're all completely connected to Krishna. They rely on Krishna. And if you can develop the detachment towards material things, also you're executing the day-to-day life. If you can develop the detachment, that's what Prabhupada means.
There's an example
as good as a sannyasi.
Women who thinks of her paramour, every day, while she's in a family, then she serves her husband nicely, but she's always thinking of her lover secretly in her heart. Like that, we should apply the same principle and think of Krishna every time you're serving, you're cooking, you're sending your son to school, or you're doing something else or working. We can always think of Krishna, and that way, we're always thinking about him at the same time doing our duties. So that's the best thing to do.
And these are some of the duties of a householder. And this is all in the scriptures. He's eligible to acquire wealth, a house for maintaining his family, household items and grains to maintain the gross body. So we have the gross body and then we have the subtle body. So he's eligible, but it says brahmachari, vanaprasthas and sannyasis, and they are not eligible to go and earn on their own. Even Prabhupada says when brahmacharis earn, that's very nice. Give 100% back to the temple, all your earnings. But the grihasthas, they have more responsibility. They can earn, and then they have to support their family. At the same time, they should also support all the other ashramas. That's the social order, the Vedic social order. They are the ones who are expected to support the brahmacharis, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasa. And then, apart from maintaining the gross body, they have to develop spiritual knowledge to maintain their subtle body. Without the spiritual knowledge, then they are not leading the ashrama life, they are leading the Brahmedi life. And then limited sense gratification, including having sex for raising Krishna consciousness. So then there are a lot of discussions and there are a lot of literature about this from Srila Prabhupada. So he always says you have to chant 15 rounds before having a kid, both husband and wife. So we have to think everything in terms of spiritual. Then we make it spiritual, then it becomes spiritual. So this child is another soul we are bringing into our family. This is part and parcel of Krishna. And then we are not the controller, we are not the owner of the child, we are bringing him. So it becomes our responsibility to teach that soul about Krishna and then help him know about Krishna, and then depending on his karma and then his free will, he's going to choose what he wants to do. We cannot control other souls' destiny. You can only give them, and you can practice, as Maharaj was explaining again and again. You have to act as an example for others. you cannot go and simply preach to them if you're not practicing. So you have to practice, and that's the best way for your family and your relatives to observe you, and then slowly they will also get attracted in the spiritual life. And then work and earn honestly. Work should be rendered in a spirit of detachment. Again, we go to work, we get our fruit of results. As a Grihastha, we can use our Lakshmi towards our family, as well as we can give to charity for maintaining the other ashramas. We can give it to the temple, we can help some book distribution, or we can buy something for our temple. So we have to separate some Lakshmi from our income for maintaining the other ashramas.
And according to Rupa Goswami, he says that 50% of the income that we earn honestly should be given to Krishna or Krishna service. 25% you can use for your family life to purchase things and to maintain the family, and 25% goes towards emergency, you can save them. So generally it is advised that, highly recommended that Grihasthas give charity to other ashramas, or they can even give charity to other brahmanas in their own ashramas.
And then Grihastha can perform deity worship. Again, Prabhupada recommends in one place, Grihasthas are best suitable for doing the deity worship at the temple. And then you can also have deities at home, so you can do deity worship. And then do your sadhanas. Follow the 4 regulative principles, chanting your rounds, and then having some kirtans at your home with the family, and also read from the scriptures. So we have to follow these things consistently every day. We should allocate time and then practice all of these things, and that's how we can. How many minutes we can spend towards Krishna? How many minutes we spend towards Krishna? Again, Prahlad Maharaj says, one person lives only 100 years in the Kali Yuga. 50 years gone by sleeping, and then the 10 years, he spends as a child. Another 10 years as a youth. 20 years, again, gone by being an old man in a disease. So there's only 10 years left, if we are going to live 100 years. So if that 10 years, we have to focus, and then we have to think about Krishna and see in that 10 years how many minutes we can spend towards Krishna. Then accept only those things that are favorable towards Krishna consciousness, and then reject those things that are not favorable. This comes in our everyday life. Every day, every time you have a choice. So you have to choose something. You have to think. Is it favorable to Krishna consciousness? Otherwise, if you are going more material, then we will have less time for our spiritual life. When you have less time, then your fire goes down. When your fire goes down, automatically, then your attraction towards Krishna is going to come down. So we have to keep the fire going. So for that, we should mix the material life with the Krishna consciousness as much as possible. And then cultivate spirit of renunciation. As I spoke before, renunciation in the order of not complete sannyasa, but then don't be detached to the fruit of actions. And here are some duties of the husband. The husband must show true appreciation and gratitude towards his wife for helping him in his devotional service. So as husband and wife together, one is helping other in the devotional service. In brahmacharya, you are on your own. You are completely depending on your acharya, your teacher, and then you are at the ashram. Or even if you're outside the ashram, there's nobody to 100% help you. But here, the wife you have taken the vow. The wife is going to help you, and then you are going to help your wife.
Never take the wife for granted.
So, that's true. Think twice before entering into Grihastha Ashrama. And the husband should be caring and protective while strictly following the principles of spiritual life, of Krishna consciousness. So he has to be caring and protective. And then he says he has to be responsible for wife's well-being and protection. And you should see that the wife and children are nicely trained in Krishna consciousness. So it is the responsibility of the husband to learn the scriptures, to practice Krishna consciousness, and also bring your wife and your children into the Krishna consciousness. You have the responsibility. As a Grihastha, the responsibility is more, because you're just not trying to bring your soul back, but you also have people depending on you. It's your social responsibility to bring them back.
Lord Rishabhadev says in this context that one should not become a parent, a teacher, or a spiritual master until one is able to free his dependence of the repeated cycle of birth and death. So that's very important.
And then you have to provide all facilities to your wife and children. That's your responsibility. And there's more. As a husband, you have to be faithful, devoted, and dutiful to your wife. It works both ways. And then respect and care for his wife and children as the sacred property of Krishna interested in his care. So they are individual soul. You don't have any control over them, and you cannot lord them. So they are individual souls. Give them their space, their respect. At the same time, you have to work together in Krishna consciousness. Control the urge to develop pride, thinking he is the provider. So this happens in many houses, and that's the source of fight. The husband thinks, oh, I'm doing everything. You're not doing anything. I'm doing this. That mentality should go away. I mean, you are serving another Vaishnava. Your wife is also a Vaishnava, your children is also a Vaishnava. So you learn everywhere the scriptures, serve the Vaishnava. Not only the Vaishnavas who are wearing the dhotis, kurtas and saris outside, but you have Vaishnavas at home. So they are the Vaishnavas you're serving. So there is no question of saying that, I'm doing more. If you would like to do more service, obviously you're going to take it. You find the opportunity to do more service. And you are here at home, you have that opportunity to serve the Vaishnavas. And that's why, not meant to be a dictator or an autocrat. Humility, tolerance, and compassion are important attributes in performing duties of a husband. It's very difficult. I do not have any of them. But I'm trying to get there. So every Grihastha should do the same thing. So
don't worry, I'll put you in the spot.
So these are a couple of quotes from Srila Prabhupada. You're married, you must be responsible for maintenance of your wife. You must maintain her nicely and help her to progress in Krishna consciousness. So again, his focus is saying you have to take care. You have to take care. And you are responsible for bringing them into Krishna consciousness. You have taken her as your wife, and by our Vedic standards, you're responsible for her spiritual advancement. So you must make the attempt to assist her in becoming Krishna consciousness very seriously, and that is your responsibility. And that's our way of life. You told me you would spend your whole life trying to make me happy, and then the husband said, I didn't expect to live this long. That's a kind of, just we say by mouth, but we really don't follow.
So, these are the duties of the wife. She makes the Grihastha Ashram safe by guiding her husband, and she protects her husband from going astray and doing religious activities. In this connection, we've seen among many Vedic scripture, it says Ravana's wife Mandodari, she always gave him good advice, but he never listened to her. Tara advised Vali, but he would not listen to her. And Dhritarashtra was advised by Gandhari, and they never listened, but they were failed, and then it led them to their fall down and destruction eventually. So one should listen to one's wife.
Hari Bol! We never discussed this while doing this PowerPoint.
So otherwise you know what the consequences would be. So one should always serve the husband, the wife should always serve the husband faithfully, devotedly and sincerely, thinking him as an extension of Krishna. So We should be very sincere in our duties, and she should be clever in the household management. So it should not be a thrift or something. You have to save for emergencies, keep the house clean, and a lot of clever ways of doing things to manage the household nicely. Srila Prabhupada explains in one of the purport that for a woman, the first principle of religion is to serve her husband. Even if the husband is a neophyte devotee, still the wife should serve him. She should be patient with him, tolerate any demands that he may have, and then show by example that by being a nice woman, he automatically gets attracted to Krishna consciousness, and it's possible that he'll also follow and be a nice devotee of Krishna. The wife should serve her husband with Vishram-vena, that is intimacy, and Gaura-vena, it's called reverence. So we should respect. Without respect, there's no love. So we should respect our husbands and treat them nicely.
So there is an example in scripture in Bhagavatam. Devahuti serves Kardama Muni. That's how that's how Prabhupada says every time. So this is how husband should behave. My wife said, I don't listen to her. At least I think that's what she said. So. And there are some more letters about Grihastha. Our Krishna is a great family personality. Krishna is never a mendicant, and our ambition is to enter into Krishna's family and to associate with him personally. So to marry and to become an exemplary household is the ideal life of Krishna consciousness. Hari Bol. Actually, there is no difference between devotees living inside the temple and devotees living outside the temple. You're right that the important thing is to remember Krishna. Whatever is your activities. So again, remembering Krishna, wherever you are, as a family, every single day we have to find opportunity. I mean, that's the goal, again, for the Grihastha. You can still advance in Krishna consciousness, even in the office, by chanting. I don't know how many of you do that, to finish your rounds. So office by chanting and giving some percentage to the temple. Again, we discussed the Grihastha has a responsibility to earn money, and then he should give some proportion of that for the other ashramas, to maintain other ashramas, as well as for the Krishna, advancement of Krishna consciousness. Our philosophy is that all the fruits of our activities go to Krishna for his enjoyment. It does not matter what our position may be. Then, so we discussed about what's Grihastha ashrama and what's the responsibility of a husband, what's the responsibility of a wife. Then comes, obviously, when they're in a Grihastha ashrama, then another soul come into their life. So how we have to bring up our children. So that is the next topic.
Children should be given abundant love and affection, and until the age of 5, they just receive unconditional love from you, and they can be disciplined if necessary. Until the age of 10, they can be treated as a friend. Before the age of 10, you be like a tiger, and then tell them what to do, what not to do, learn them how to distinguish between good and bad. And then once they attain the age of 16, you treat them as a friend. So you don't boss over them, but basically you ask them if they want to do this, do that. So you just treat them like a friend. That's the advice of Chanakya Pandit. And every child has God-given intelligence and ability. Parents should not subject their children to excessive academic pressure. So nowadays you find that children have to do so many tasks. They have to be a multitasker. They have to go to school, they have to learn an instrument, they have to go to special math classes, spelling bees, all that. So if you do so much of that, then it takes the focus away from Krishna or spiritual life, Even as a child, Prahalad Maharaj, did devotional service, and he was able to attain the Supreme. So one should not subject our children, whatever anxieties or desires we have, we should not impose on them and then have them do all that. So you should just leave it to them, but do encourage them to do other things. You need to learn to go to do certain things. They need to learn math. So all that is encouraged, but at the same time we should encourage their spiritual life. Parents should never argue or fight in the presence of children. That has a very negative impact. Children learn by imitation. So if you fight, they're going to fight and they're going to have develop negative qualities. If you are a nice person, if you practice Krishna consciousness yourself, they will want to imitate you, they'll want to do kirtan, they'll want to read a book or chant Hare Krishna mantra. So you have to be an example and show them how to behave. Parents should not criticize other devotees in front of the child. So just give it's negative for their thoughts, and they won't grow up to be a nice person. So
never force children to be Krishna consciousness, as they may rebel against it. So initially, they may listen to you. You force them, they will come to the temple, they will sit in the class, they will do whatever you want, but after some time, they're going to completely rebel against you and they may not be interested. So our responsibility is to cultivate the interest in their heart and give them the choice. Constantly cultivate the interest. How you can cultivate? Again, you have to show as an example. If you do it, they are going to watch and they are going to do it. If a dad is a smoker, he cannot go and tell his son or daughter, you cannot smoke. Because he learned firsthand from his dad. That's the same thing. If you practice every day, then they are going to learn from that. And it can really do wonders. They may go away from Krishna consciousness for some time, but at one point in time, they will come back after some time. And create the Krishna conscious environment at home and be a role model. Best and the most merciful thing parents can do for the children is to be as perfect an example as possible in one's own life. No one can make our children Krishna consciousness. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to just let them go to Gurukul and then they will make them Krishna conscious. But I'm going to do all the nonsense here because I don't even have any more responsibility to take care of the children. Now that's not always true. If opportunity arises, yes, we can send them to Gurukul or to places where they can learn Krishna consciousness. But it is our own responsibility to teach our children. It's only our own affection towards them and our actions will make them Krishna consciousness. Parents should make Krishna consciousness attractive to children. When you're trying to give them a coloring book, you can give them some Krishna coloring book, and then give them storybooks. You can give them one of the fiction books that they have to read. At the same time, you can also buy the Krishna conscious storybooks, and then they can read side by side. They slowly get the taste of it, and that's how we can slowly introduce. So we always have a choice. We can either eat karmi food, or we can give them prasadam. We can send them to summer camp, or we can send them to Krishna camp. In most of the temples, they either do Krishna camp or Gita camp, 1 or 2 weeks. We did in Hartford. We have been doing for 5 years now, and kids love it. Initially, it started with 5, 6 kids, and then this time we had about 20 kids coming to the Krishna camp for about a week. Initially, it was only 3 days, and now we found the time and energy to put into this. Now it was for a whole week this time. And then everything is a choice. So party with friends, you can go party with the friends, or you can go for Namahata. You can add one more day to your week. Sunday, yes, we go to the Sunday program. But just try to add one more day in your life, every week. So you can have Namahata. If people are not interested, you can have in your place, or then slowly people will start coming. And then you can have it in different houses. Again, the same thing, you can constantly watch games, or you can go for the Sunday feast. Read fiction books or read Prabhupada books. You can send them to spelling bee. Of course, you can still send them to spelling bee. And you can also make them memorize the Bhagavad Gita verses. You will be amazed to see how kids' memories are like a sponge. We have to read 10 times to repeat the verse. But the Sanskrit verses, kids, when you tell them to repeat 3 times, the 4th time they just repeat like a pattern. That's enough for now. And then they will also memorize a translation. Their memory is so nice. See, and then rock concert or congregational chanting. Discuss mundane topics or Krishna conscious lectures. We can listen to lectures at home, and then we can have constantly kirtan going at home. So all these things will affect their consciousness in a positive way. It will create an impact. Or constantly there's something going on in their house. That sound vibration is what they are going to listen all the time. If there's a good sound vibration, it's going to make change in their heart, in their mind. And then they will get attracted. They will get the taste of that. And have the Karmi Association or Vaishnava Association. You can't, being a Grihastha, you can't 100% avoid Karmi Association. But the most important thing is, when you associate with the Karmis, You have to associate with them every day. You don't take anything from them. If possible, you give them some Krishna consciousness, however way you can. But don't take anything from them. Create a barrier around you. It's very hard. It's easier said than done. But that's how we have to practice. You can cook for friends or cook for Krishna. You can spend a lot of money for a weekend and go to the yoga retreat, or you can go to Vaishnava Sanga. So we have a couple of videos from the East Harper Temple. So I'm going to just show these videos for about a minute, 3 or 4, just how these kids are so involved in doing Krishna conscious activities. I don't know how much you can see from there because of the brightness. That's our East Harper Temple President, his name is Gary Mohan Prabhu. He's very good with kids. Only he can manage 20 kids like this. They're all sitting quiet. So this is, they're having nothing but prayer, kirtan. Couple of kids were practicing, actually they were learning to play mridanga during the Krishna camp, and they're actually playing. So this is a 6-year-old kid doing arati. Everything is done by kids. Kids are playing mridanga, they are doing the arati, and then they are doing the kirtan. So, this is chanting japa with so much enthusiasm. I don't think we will have this much enthusiasm to chant the japa. We had a wonderful opportunity to have Maharaj.
Yes.
Jai Maharaj. So, come to the Krishna camp. It was wonderful, and we requested him to give class. So he said, he went to the kids and then said, okay, what topic? And the kids said, raised their hands and said, talk about animals. Then Maharaj said, very nice, that's a very good topic. So give me one example of animal. And then he nicely took the class, and they were saying monkey, and then he was explaining how monkey was helping Krishna in Vrindavan. And then they said cows and the peacock, and then he was giving how they are all serving. And they said, so okay. So there were also games these animals were playing. And swan plays nice game. What game swan played? And then somebody was saying, baseball. And Maharaj was so nice. He said, no, that game is for bats. And then finally, after 15 minutes, he said, okay, so you had enough of me? And then one kid raised, a 4-year-old, yes. It was wonderful.
I find it hard to believe that God's greatest love was defeated.
don't know, I don't remember what he said. It was so nice, we were laughing out loud at that time. Only 15 minutes, we were laughing, all the teachers who came to help. It was so nice. And this is another picture, we can take our kids to Rath Yatra and all the other places. Anything that is spiritual, we should try to do that. Spend more time towards that. And so here is another thing. So some of the kids, they know how to play harmonium, they know how to play flute, and then they all came together, and here we are. We were practicing for a small kirtan. After the program, we were going to do it for the Sunday feast. All the kids did a small kirtan, so they were practicing that, and it's nice. They all played the instrument, and then they were very involved. It's very easy to make them involved at this age. Once they become the teens, I don't have experience because I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I will come back after 10 years and then I will share my pains of handling the teens. But these are some of the challenges that we have in our day-to-day life as a Grihastha. Work and school schedule. We have to maintain our schedules. It's very hard to manage between our spiritual activity and our work schedule and our personal life. So we have to find a balance. And then we have to keep up with our health. Poor health. When you have poor health, then you won't be able to concentrate more on the spiritual activities, rather you're going to take care of your body. So as much as possible, we should take care of our health, and then we should follow the regulated principles. And regulated sleep. This is very difficult for anybody to follow, but that's what prescribed in everywhere. To have a healthy spiritual life, we have to have regulated sleep. We have to go exactly at this time to bed. We have to only sleep this many hours, get up in the morning, the early morning, and morning is the good time to do all spiritual activities, especially for Grihastha, because once your kids wake up, and that's it. You become Grihameti. Because you have to do a lot of things, you have to go to work, and then you come in the evening. There are so many things. So morning is the best time. So we have to regulate our sleep. And balancing the spiritual and material activities. That we have to do. It's again hard. Not having good devotional means of recreation. Again, these you can consider as some kind of recreation. Because, what we would be doing back home if this is not there. Like that, we have to find opportunities to extend our Krishna conscious involvement. Otherwise, we'll be doing some mundane things. So again, our mind is it's like a monkey. It's constantly going to look for some material satisfaction, sense satisfactory things. You have to constantly feed it with something else, so it's not going to think, okay, for time being, no, I'm not going to think. Once I go back, it turns upside down, and then again, feed something. So slowly, we have to constantly find things. Or endeavoring for material possessions. I want to try to go up the ladder in my corporate office. Yes, you can do that, and you keep going up the ladder, your spiritual life keep going down. So you have to find the balance. Otherwise, you're spending more time getting up the ladder at one point of time. Whatever, so you get laid off, or then you lost everything. At the same time, if you try to maintain this will give you money to put in your checking account. And the spiritual life, you are putting money into the spiritual account, Krishna's account. So you want to put more in the spiritual account, or you want to put more in the checking account. You have to find the balance. Nobody can tell which one you are, but you have to find the balance. And then lack of devotees association. That's a big challenge. There are places where there are no devotees, or there are no temples. It's a blessing that we have temple very close by here. So we can kindle the fire every single week, at least once a week. And then devotee association, we talk about Krishna Katha, we talk about something. If you don't have that, I was actually doing I went to college in Nebraska in the US. It's like a middle of the US, and somebody commented when I was in the flight, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, I'm doing my college degree in Nebraska. "Oh, Nebraska, think of a donut, and in the middle is Nebraska. It's nothing, pretty much." So I was like, well, okay. So we go to those places and then you don't get that much association. So you have to create the association. We can keep the fire going by reading the scriptures, listening to the kirtans, and then listening to the lectures, and we can somehow try to have the home program. Home program, it doesn't have to be 10 people coming in, you're making a lot of preparations. Just you and your wife and your children, you have. And then try to invite somebody, your neighbor or your colleague, somebody who's showing a little bit of inclination. Then that team grows. And that's how you can have the association. Then make it regular. The consistency is more important. And then spouse is not Krishna conscious. That is a big challenge. And then you have to handle the challenge. You cannot enforce anything on the other soul. The other soul has its own independence, but what you can do, you have to practice. You have to, when you come up to that platform, you have to be very tolerant. And when you come up to that platform, the other half is going to observe you, and then they will eventually get attracted. You cannot determine their destiny. They have their own karma.
Pray to Krishna, so he gives his mercy to the spouse too.
So you sincerely pray to Krishna that he or she should also get attracted towards Krishna consciousness. Then, once both are into it, then it's very easy. Until then, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but it's okay. We'll still manage. For that, you cannot chastise the other person. You cannot blame. You cannot say, because of you, I am going down in my spiritual activity. You cannot do any of those things. It will only create more friction between husband and wife, and that will lead to you will go away from spiritual life. And not fulfilling household responsibilities. Again, those are the challenges. Some people, okay, I want to do this. This is my priority, but I'm not going to do this. You have to go, anything you are doing as a regular person, you have to do. You can't just skip certain things and then say, no, I'm not going to do it. I have more priority. I have to finish my 16 rounds and that's it. And I have to do this, so I'm skipping this. You have a choice, always. If you can, then you skip that and you do spiritual activity. But some things that you have to, it's a need. You have to do it as a householder, that's your responsibility. And then time management. It's very difficult for everybody. You have to somehow find time. The time management is, you have to do certain things in the morning, maybe do certain things in the evening, or once a week. I'm going to do, I will always read one verse every day before going to bed. Something, you have to come to some regulation within your house and follow that. Try to manage the time, then everything will be okay. It's very difficult, but that's what. So another challenge nowadays, there is a fifth principle, No gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no Facebook. So there are some more challenges.
The husband and wife, sometimes they blame each other. You discussed that point already, that we should not blame each other for our own faults or our own inconsistencies in doing our sadhana. We should keep the fire going by associating with devotees, and also you can get advice from other grihasthas about how they do it, and then try to advance by that method. Both husband and wife should tolerate each other, and even though there may be some misunderstanding between them, we should take them lightly and not exaggerate things. It should not be exaggerated, and then we shouldn't find a way to get away from each other. So just tolerate some of the problems that you have, and then just focus on Krishna consciousness. So that will help each other grow. Try to see all conflicts as an opportunity for growth. So when there's a problem, like Kunti Devi always thinks that let there be more calamities, and I think that it's an opportunity for me to think of Krishna. So even if she has some miseries, they come and go, and you should take them as an opportunity to think of Krishna. The more problems we have, the more we surrender to Krishna. That should be our attitude. Don't take all conflicts personally and separate people from problems. We should remember that perception is relative. So sometimes you may have a white body, but you may be married to an Indian woman. So the way they think and do things could be different. But we should always keep the goal and focus. That is, we should be Krishna conscious and serve the senses of Krishna. So it doesn't matter how we do things, as long as it is very nice and it's convenient for progressing in Krishna consciousness, we should keep that. So reject things which are not in favor of Krishna consciousness, and always take things which are in favor to Krishna consciousness. So that should be our motto, and we should always keep our aim, which is going back to Godhead.
So Srila Prabhupada, as advice, has stated that we can only improve ourselves, and that's a gradual process. Certainly life in this world is difficult for everyone, and the main difficulty is becoming Krishna consciousness. That is a very personal thing. Your Krishna consciousness is your own responsibility. You should not blame your difficulties on your husband or wife. Sure, things could be better if he or she was a better devotee, but you cannot change him or her. The only person you can really change is yourself. And you don't have to do that completely immediately. Take your time, day after day, try to make a little improvement here and there. Each morning, think of some difficulty that you are having, and then think about how to practice overcoming it during the course of the day. In this way, by working on small things, gradually you can see the improvement. This is much better than becoming frustrated by trying to change everything suddenly and completely. A lot of people try to do this. Suddenly they want to jump at it. They once they found, oh, that's it, newfound love. They get to it, and then that after some time they lose interest because they overdid it. Gradually, slowly, if you did it, do things, then automatically you will be in a better position. So there are some opportunities. We will just I'll just quickly go through. As a Grihastha, you're able to help sannyasi. You have Lakshmi, so you can help the sannyasis by donating Lakshmi in their mission to spread Krishna consciousness, serving the deities, worship the deities at home, giving Krishna to friends and family. You are getting in contact with so many non-devotees every day in your office, your friends, your kids have their parents, so many things. That's all. Everything is an opportunity. You can think them of an opportunity. So please use that. By giving Krishna to friends and family, offering prasadam to a non-devotee, you can subtly offer prasadam. Like when they say, bring cakes or brownie or cookie for this program with the kids, we just send cookies, but it's a prasadam cookie. So you're just supplying some prasadam to small kids at the school. So, and act as a role model to teach Krishna consciousness to non-devotees. So you have to practice first, then when they keep observing you, then they will start asking, so what actually is that? What are you doing? Why don't you eat meat? So slowly this inquisitive question. Then you can respond to those questions. Using worldly knowledge in favor of Krishna. Somebody is an attorney, somebody is a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, computer science, you can use in Krishna service when you have time. Distribution of Prabhupada books. You can, as a Grihastha, you can go out and then you can still, as a family, you can distribute books and visit holy places with your families. These are some of the examples of ideal Grihasthas. Lord Gauranga, Srila Vyasadeva, Lord Balaram, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Yamaraj, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada.
In Srila Prabhupada's case, he is told that as a child, his father always wanted him to be a devotee of Srimati Radharani. So he'd encourage him and he would get him deities and he would worship them nicely. And he would even have a small Rath Yatra festival for the deities. But he says as he grew up, he lost this attachment and he didn't worship the deities so much. But then when he came across his Guru Maharaj, then he started worshipping the same, his playful deities as worshipable lords. So he was able to take Krishna consciousness because he had an example. He was able to observe his father, how good a Vaishnava he was. And he could remember that, and that's how he grew his Krishna consciousness since childhood. And even Gaur Govind Maharaj, he had a small deity of Krishna since his childhood. His father bought it for him, and it's called Gopal deity, and he was very attached to the deity, and thus he became a very nice devotee after he grew up. So whatever we give children at the time of, since their childhood, it's very useful, and whatever they see, that's what they become. So we should help them do that and encourage them in their Krishna consciousness.
So we would like to thank our beloved Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Narendra Swami, and His Grace Pari Mohan Prabhu, and Jivan Aushadhi Mataji. They are temple presidents of East Hartford Temple in Connecticut, and Grihastha Vision team. If you should visit their website. There are a lot of information for Grihasthas, and then organizers of this Vaishnava Sanga festival are giving us the opportunity to come here and enjoy the association of all the devotees and elevated Vaishnavas. So, stay on the boat.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, questions or comments, we would appreciate it.
That's what we do.
There's a nice article in Back Godhead. I'm sure you must have seen it. I think the March April issue. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, Prabhu. I'm reminded of, as you're saying, some of the challenges and how we can improve the Grihastha Ashram. There's a nice article from the Back of Godhead from March, April, I think, by Arjuna Siddhanta Devi Dasi. We call that disciple. She, as you know, she's a counselor in the movement. So she says that the Grihastha Ashram can be considered like a spiritual bank account in the sense that if there's a disagreement or some argument between the husband and wife, then they acquire negative points. But if the wife or the husband compliment each other to say that you made some wonderful prashadam, or you did wonderful daily service, or you handed a book to a friend, that's positive points. So at the end of the day and at the end of the week, you can count up your positive and negative points, and hopefully you'll come up with a positive balance. So that's another way of keeping the Grihastha Ashram nicely together.
Very nice.
That was a wonderful article. So I would encourage everyone to read that article to strengthen their commitment to the Grihastha Ashram.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks for sharing.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I'm a newly wedded, it's been a few years, but still new in the Grihastha Ashram, and it's very helpful. Thank you.
You have to go through the pain to come and sit here.
Or I can appreciate more what you're saying. There was one sentence that stuck in my mind: caring and protective while strictly following the principles of Krishna consciousness. I understood, why do you say while? Is there like a contradiction between caring and protective and strictly following the principles of Krishna consciousness? That sentence, can you please explain?
So there, the point Prabhupada trying to make is, you are practicing Krishna consciousness. When somebody, trying to practice Krishna consciousness, they think, I am superior, I'm practicing Krishna consciousness. The other individuals, they look down upon them. And then they don't give enough time to help them or to take care of them. So Prabhupada is saying, while you are practicing Krishna consciousness, at the same time you have to protect them. If something bad happens, it's your responsibility to go and protect them. At that time you have to act as a husband. So that's why you have to put things in perspective. It's not protecting the way of Krishna consciousness. So it has to be both. You cannot skip one thing.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
I think, generally speaking, if we're too attached to the Western style of life, then a marriage will be more difficult, because the Western concept of marriage it places too much expectation and emphasis on the perfect man-woman relationship. If you look at the Vedic lifestyle, which is community-based, a married couple will be very closely connected with so many other relatives, and in that way, the man and the woman in the strict Vedic lifestyle would not even live together practically. The men would live with the men and the women with the women, and they meet occasionally. So in that situation, there's a lot less expectation on the idea that they'll get along perfectly.
Right. Yeah, I also read somewhere Srila Prabhupada said on those days, as per the Vedic culture, husband and wife, they are husband and wife. But actually, as Prabhu said, they live separately. They don't even see during the daytime. They don't even meet each other the whole day. And they don't even live together, always. When you see each other many, many times in a day, you know what happens. A lot of grihasthas here. So,
familiarity breeds contempt.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks for the comment. Thank you.
So, are there any other questions? I think we're close to that time, or at that time now.
His Holiness Naranjana Swami ki, Vaishnava Sanga Festival ki,
His Grace Madhava Gopal Prabhu ki, His Grace Mahati Priya Mataji ki. Thank you, Prabhu, so very much. I don't think these Prabhus will be being very honest with me. They said, thanks for the opportunity, we have never done this before. We've never done a presentation before. You Prabhus did an excellent job, and we thank you very, very much. Can we book you for next year?
It's all the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.